All right. Well, it's just a little after 1, so let's kick it off. So Dan, so excited that you're here. I really appreciate your time. We've got you for 30 minutes, so we are going to pull as much out of your brain as we can. And
hopefully it isn't a vacuum.
Yeah, well, we'll leave a little bit for everybody. Just a couple of quick housekeeping things. Thanks to our audience for joining us. Just in case something happens, we've got a big storm rolling through New Jersey. It's possible this whole thing could get wiped out, but hopefully we'll make it through the next half hour. If you have some questions, please put them into the chat, which is below the window of the video here. We're not going to be doing Q&A in the 30 minutes, but we will do our best to answer any of those questions as a follow-up in the next couple of days. We are recording the session, so we'll send out a link for that as well with the Q&A when we get there. So we're going to just jump right in. So, Dan, you have worked with many customers, and I'd love to have our audience get a little bit of a look behind the scenes of what you've experienced. Now, I expect that there's some times when you've started a project and digging in and you've said to that customer, yeah, I see this pretty often. Here's something we can do in just a few days that I think will make a big difference. So can you tell us what you're seeing in that kind of situation and what you recommend so that our audience can think about applying some of those ideas as well right away?
Yeah, many times we get engaged too late, after something starts to go a little bit awry. And the first question I like to ask people is, who are your customers and what are their critical needs? What are you trying to do? The customers could be internal or external, but what is the problem you're trying to address? And then I usually try to descale the project to small nuggets, because a lot of times people want to do this huge project. There's lots of risk. It's scary. There's lots of people that have to be involved. And I always, I prefer to scale it down to something we can get completed in a couple of weeks, because the client will learn something. We'll learn about them, and then if they want to engage us again, fine. If they don't, we've at least finished something that's useful. And I just think it makes it easier. You do a series of small sprints where at the end of each one, they're learning something, they're getting an output, their customers see progress, and so they get excited. And then that's usually a really positive reinforcing loop. If you can deliver things quickly and people are getting value out of them, it builds its own momentum.
So how do you, are there some particular things that you've seen that how you can, as you say, descale and kind of make it into more bite-sized chunks in these do you see any kind of similar things across the kinds of projects that you work on? Because I think we all face those problems, right? The projects come in and they never get smaller, right? They only seem to get bigger really fast. And it can become overwhelming, and then you don't make progress because you have these big things you feel like you have to complete. And that has its own set of risks too, right? By taking too long. And so what could you give us some?
In general, I would say that is the problem. People try to do this huge thing without breaking it into logical sized sub-projects where there's a beginning and an end that you can see easily. The other part is that a lot of times people want things that they don't have the data to do. And so there is some, you got to do a little bit of digging just to see what's possible. I'll give you an example. I'm working on a project right now with a major university. We've done other work with them. They had this problem before where we asked all the right questions. They said, yes, we have the data. Of course, we get in there and in 2 days figure out they have none of the data they really need. And then we have to help them architect the data schema that we'd use to build whatever they want, and it just adds time and cost. Well, even though we had had that experience with the client before, and we'd reminded them and asked them all the right questions, something happened over the weekend. They weren't able to finish their work, and so it will add a couple of days to the start. Now, I'm confident that they understand much better exactly what they need to have, but even when they knew, there were roadblocks because of the size of entity and the other groups that they had to interact with to get things working. So even when they know, you could run into problems. So you just have to have, you have to be real and providing feedback every step of the way, because it's all about expectations. They have to build the appropriate expectations inside of their organization.
Mm-hmm.
We have to build the right expectations of what we're doing and how long it will take, because nobody cares if you finish early and for less money than you said. It's when it goes over that everybody's upset. So, overpromise or underpromise and overdeliver would be my mantra on that.
Sure. So when you sit down and go through something like that, are there any telltale signs that you see right away and oh boy, we better, before we go too far, the first things we need to do are kind of these couple of steps to help kind of sort out some of these issues?
Yeah, again, I'll give you a specific example right now. We always ask about the data. And if that person that's engaging us does not know the details or can't answer them or has to get other people involved, immediately that's, okay, we need to slow down. Let's make sure that your folks understand what needs to be in place so that you're efficiently utilizing us when we're there. We're not inexpensive, but we are fast. So we always try to make sure the client is ready when we show up to give us what we need to do the work we have to do. And then we're going to find things that aren't quite right. It's almost impossible for someone that's envisioning a project to know all of their data is complete and accurate and properly structured, and that they understand what their internal customers need. Because a lot of people they're sort of fuzzy about what it is they want.
Right.
They have a generally good idea. Mm-hmm. And if you can get out of them what they're trying to accomplish, you can then drill in on what they actually need to accomplish that. And it almost always means there's additional data work.
Right. So what would be, so you raised an interesting point. So we'll close on this question. What can you ask them, or what do you ask them that detects that maybe they don't really know what they should be knowing?
Well, if they say we want a dashboard or we want to answer this sort of question, you can sort of logically back into what pieces need to be there. Mm-hmm. And now those are the specific questions. Do you have this? What database is it in? Is this external service? Have you exported data from it before? Do you know if an API exists? Have you pulled any data from that service or that? Have you tried to validate? Do you have checksums? They're all the basic questions. Well, the answer is normally they haven't gotten to that yet. Mm. And they don't know where there might be incomplete data or access issues. And then if it's got to be refreshed every 15 minutes, have they ever tried pulling that data down? How big is the data? How, you're at the mercy of an internet connection sometimes. Do you have adequate bandwidth to pull that quickly? There's just all kinds of nuances, and every situation is a little bit different.
But can't you just make me a dashboard?
Sure we can, but it may not work. You might not have anything in it. The dashboard's the fun, easy part.
It sounds,
this.
Yeah.
It's the last 5% of everything. It's the first 95% that's the grunt work that needs to get done.
Yeah, that's what I mean. Just as you're saying those things, I'm realizing the depth of kinds of questions that you could give somebody just up front to get at such a simple point about some of those data elements. So it's good if people think about for their own business some of those kinds of checklists that are, they should go through in preparation whether they're working with an outside company or trying to do their own projects.
I think checklists are really, really good ideas, and there's been good books written about that. Over the last 10 years, it's really helpful to have a mental model when you start, that the pieces that need to be there, the team that you need to do it, where your team maybe doesn't have all the detail knowledge that they need. A lot of times we're engaged by really technically good people. They just don't know a certain technology yet. And, what we're selling is risk aversion and speed at getting their team up to the knowledge level they need. And at the end of the day, we're trying to help the client whatever way they need.
Yeah.
Do they need technical expertise? Okay. Do you need some vision? You need a strategic view of what the future could look like. Is it tactical? Is it just we need resources to plug in tactically at different points? So we try to solve what the customer's problem is, whether it's strategic, tactical, technical, whatever it is.
Makes sense.
To get to the end result, which is a nice dashboard that's useful to people.
Cool. All right, let's move on to another question here. So one thing I've been seeing over the last year or so is the buzz around data literacy, which has lots of possible meanings. But even more than that, another phrase that's come out is data culture. And I'm getting concerned that when people talk about how they think they can handle culture, it's like how they handle technology. And it takes more than going into the settings window to get culture right. So, I think data culture is going to be one of the hardest things that people in our field may have ever faced, because it's not just the hard parts of the software or the hardware that they're going to deal with. So, having said all that, can you give us a little of your thinking about data culture in general, where you think it's going and some of the things you might be seeing out there, but also related to that is kind of where you may have personally had to push past your own comfort zone, because I think that's what this is going to be a lot about, and why it was hard for you to do that.
Okay, so that's a twofer.
Yeah.
So I'll answer the second part first because it's easy for me. When you get into comfort zone issues, when I started the practice at Interworks, I had this vision of what it would be, which I was totally wrong. I promised all these things to the owner of Interworks, and I failed to deliver on all of them after the first year, because I didn't understand what the market really needed. I thought Fortune 100 companies, they don't need any help. They must know what they're doing. BI's been out 20 years.
Wow.
I thought we were going to sell to a bunch of small and medium-sized businesses, and that it would be really easy to sell this obviously great technology. It was totally wrong. I mean, the big companies needed a lot of help, and talking about the technology didn't do anything. You had to show actual examples and use cases before it would be meaningful to people. And it literally took a year for me to do that. Now, in the interim period during that year, the owner said, Dan, you cost more than you generate in revenue. I can't pay you. So I guess we're done. I believe in your vision, but I think you're 5 years too early. And the leap of faith I took is I said, I'll work for $0 base pay and 100% commission. How about that?
Wow.
That was a gamble. But 6 months later, he was calling me up, begging to hire me. He owed me a fair amount of money from that deal, and I kind of liked the arrangement at that point. So, to his credit, we worked that out, and really, it was my year of learning that got me to that point and adapting. Like any business, you start with an idea, and it's probably 20% correct when you start it. After a year into it, you realize that you have to tweak the model a little to make it work. And that was exactly the case with what we started at Interworks. It was We had an idea. The fundamental technologies were right, but the way we talked about them and the customers we were trying to go after were completely different.
But it was only the fact that you failed that you had able to make that shift.
Right. You learn from failures. If you're not failing, you aren't trying hard enough.
But that's not how most people think, right? That's not how a lot of companies operate, right? It's if you fail, you fail.
Companies, like, if you're talking about big companies, they don't think that way. But entrepreneurs, small companies, they expect to fail. And it's a learning experience. You want to get through the failures quickly and adapt. And if you fail enough, over a year, you might have a pretty decent business model by about a year and a half in. Right. And you look at every big successful tech company today, they probably started out with a series of smaller, not fatal failures that, the investors in that company were willing to accept because they saw progress. Right. So it's just a different way of thinking than you would in a Fortune 50 company. When your bonus is predicated on growing the massive number to an even more massive number.
So how can you tie that idea about maybe fear, fear of, I don't know if it's necessarily fear of failure, but that failure is bad, to this emerging idea of data culture?
Well, I think it's very analogous because no matter what you start with in terms of the things you're working with, it will change as the project goes forward. You'll have to adapt some. The client may not get all of the things they wanted in the first 2 to 4 weeks because they just didn't have it all. But you want to get enough done that they learn from the experience and they see something really useful come out of it. And then you just repeat. It's just a series of, small cycles where at each level you're meeting more people, you're learning more about what they're trying to do, you're getting a more nuanced understanding of it, and they're understanding what they want with more clarity. They know what's required to get to that point. And that's when I see us having the most success with clients, when we can go through multiple iterations. They learn something, we learn about them, and we just keep repeating the cycle and get better at it at every, sprint. So it's lower risk for them, and it's better. It's lower risk for us as well, because we've sort of gated the thing to a bite-sized nugget that can get done efficiently.
So is there something you could, a little bit of advice, like if we were just having, sitting having coffee together and I was telling you I was afraid to, there were certain things I was not comfortable doing. How could some of those things, you could just give me a quick bit of advice, like, hey, why don't you do this to try to move past that discomfort, whatever it might be?
Yeah, I mean, sometimes you need technical partnership with somebody that brings the skills you don't have. Mm-hmm. Other times it's just you haven't done it before and you don't know yet what it's like. And, obviously those two different circumstances have different solutions. We have worked on projects where we didn't have the technical expertise that the client wanted, but I know who other companies are in the space. And I said, for that piece of it, you should go and talk to these guys because they do that. That's their business. We can do it. We're not going to be as fast and we're not going to do it as well as they are. So, there's times when we'll tell clients, and sometimes clients don't want to do what we tell them, and I'll say, look, that's what we do well. If you want to do this thing over here, here's the company you should call for that because they do that. I know they are competent at that thing. We just don't like that thing. That's not our way of doing this, but they're a good company. Call them. And I will call a competitor and say, so-and-so, here's a client for you. We're not competing with you, by the way. But if they want what you have to sell, we're telling them you're competent.
Yeah, I think that idea of kind of knowing what you're good at and being okay saying that, and a lot of people feel like I have to know everything, and that if they don't, that it's on them versus, hey, there is something new here, or you can't know everything, or you can't be perfect at everything. And there are people that you should, whether they're internal partners or you have to go outside and you're doing it, like you said, you're doing it for the better of the project, better of the company, the customer, whomever, to do that, and you're willing to, put yourself out there and say, yeah, that's just not where we're at. That does take a lot.
Even within a company, admitting, where I see a lot of projects go awry is when the project manager doesn't want to admit they don't know. That's a real bad weakness to have. Nobody knows everything. And technology evolves so quickly, just keeping up with and being aware of the new things is a challenge.
Yeah.
And I just think that's a real weakness. If a project leader can't admit that they don't have all the technical skills to do the job, they're automatically handicapping that project. And I think everything in business is a project. It doesn't matter what it is. You can define a start and an end, and if you can't, you need to, because then you can monitor how it's going. So I just think, no company can do everything for everyone. And I think we've developed really good relationships with competitors because, we like them. And we are not going to do that thing. That's not what we've decided to be. So I don't have a problem sending a client to a competitor. It doesn't mean we're not going to do business with them. It just means we're not going to do that thing.
Yeah,
so you can't, technology, there's a lot of money. The BI marketplace is huge. There's no possible way you or I can own the whole market. It's infinite. So I always figure, doing the best work with the best people, right, for the best customers is what we want to do. And sometimes we can't do the best work. So we know somebody that we think can do the job. We just point them to that.
A good quality to have. Not everybody operates that way. So I like hearing that.
When you go to a conference, a tech conference, I like talking to our competitors because a lot of them are friends. And it's not, we're not out to kill off our competitors. We just want to do good work for the clients we have. And
that's a different mentality, though.
We're happy if, somebody else can help them, if we can't.
Yeah. All right. So I love those points. It's, there's a lot of good lessons in there. So let's close up with one more question. So Dan, a lot of people don't know that you have a magic genie and that she grants you unlimited wishes. It's a little known fact. Also, she happens to have an evil genie brother. And one day that evil genie says, Dan, it's time for a change. There's no more wishing for write me a book and make me a Zen master, and I want to be great at jazz. I am going to take away all your knowledge and skills about analytics, except for one thing. So Dan, what's the one piece of knowledge or skill you would like to keep?
It would be that I like helping other people succeed and that I'm pretty good at it. And it doesn't really have to involve any technical skill. If you know how to help people succeed, you're actually learning how to leverage their skills to help themselves. And so, what, I learned this a long time ago. Individual success is no fun. Because if you talk about your individual success with other people, they think you're a jerk. But if you go through hell with a team of people and you come out at the end with an unexpected win, you know what? You've made friends for the rest of your life.
Yeah.
And there are literally people that I worked with 35 years ago that they've gone on to do other things. I still talk to them frequently because we went through some horrific project together that came out great. And that sort of stuck with me from my 20s, is that it's far better to have a team success than an individual success because you share that with those people forever. And are there specific skills like you need to help people succeed, or is it like a way of just being that kind of
person or some?
No,
or
I think
both?
I definitely was not that kind of a person when I got out of college. I was really a competitive, I wanted to win all the time. And I worked with a guy a long time ago that was in his 60s, a guy named Lou Salguero at a company called CR Bar. And Lou was just a fantastic person. He always looked to elevate the people that worked on his teams and gave them the credit for all of the good things that he facilitated. And I watched that for a few years, and I thought, you know what? Of all the people in this company that I've worked with, I will never pass up an opportunity to work with him because his projects always result in good things, and he's just a pleasure to work with. So face it, when you go to work every day, do you want to go to work with people you like, that are nice people,
Makes
that
it a lot
do
better.
good things? And it's just one of the reasons I came to work at Interworks was because the founder of Interworks just had that sort of DNA built in.
Yeah.
And that to me is the most important skill: is seek people to work with that you like, and then give them credit for the good work they do. They always appreciate that. And, the little things you do in life that maybe you don't get recognized for always do come back in the end.
Yeah.
And that to me is the most important lesson. I see lots of gung-ho kids that are brilliant coming out of college, but they're hyper competitive to a fault, and they don't know how to lose. And that's the other thing. Being able to take a defeat and learn from it and not be crushed by it. In your career, how many things went wrong? And then what did you get out of those experiences?
Yeah.
They could be either really good experiences or not. So that would be.
I think that idea is really interesting. You talk about, helping people succeed and it being about, working with a team of people is, I think we've seen that evolve over the last, I'm going to say 5 to 10 years, as kind of BI analytics has changed to be more holistic, where it's not like it was before. It was kind of IT and business, and there was this solid, or almost solid wall in between, just enough exposure so they could talk to each other a little bit, but they pretty much operated so independently. And even as you were talking before about, understanding the data and the needs, and and some of those other pieces to know that your project could move forward even in the beginning, I think those groups are still have a long way to go on how to work together to, as you said, to unbreak all this stuff, unlearn these things that have been part of the culture, part of the way just people think you have to operate. And it kind of keeps getting passed down, right? As more people come in, it's just like nobody breaks the chain, and it just said, well, that's how it's done here. And it just keeps working that way. And I think only to be successful in the future, especially now with all things that are going on, is that people are more distributed, going to have to find different ways to work together that emphasize that notion of how do I help you succeed? How do we? And then if I help you succeed, I will succeed as well. But a lot of people don't see it that way. It's got to be more direct. It's like I do X and Y happens for me, and it's not going to be like that anymore. At least I don't think so.
Yeah, I mean, at the end of the day, when you start a project, you have to set some specific goals. And what is the definition of succeed or fail? And those are usually pretty easy to come up with. It's the in-between of the people, the processes, the data, the tools. You can make mistakes in any one of those that cripples a project. I can't tell you how many projects we've been called when it's 40% of the way through the decisions that were all made wrong. And we usually tell people, well, you could do it the way you've started, but that will probably not result in the outcome you say you want.
Yeah. Or
it will come at more time and cost than you have budgeted.
Makes sense. Yeah.
So, you can't be stuck on a particular idea. You have to be flexible. You have to be willing to learn what you learn during the process.
Yeah, I think that's a great takeaway, to kind of close this out, is that ability to learn, the willingness to fail as well are I think, two really great ideas that we should all think about for ourselves and our teams, and how to nurture that going forward will make us all more successful. So, Dan, thanks so much. Our 30 minutes is finished up here. So we're going to close out, and everybody, thanks for being with us. We'll get to any Q&A afterwards, and we'll let you know about the replay. Everybody be safe.
Bye-bye. Take care, Lee.
Thanks again.
Bye-bye.